Always like to give everybody a minute or two once I hit the live button, which should be up on your screen. Good evening, families, parents, students. Welcome back. I feel like I just saw you, but I didn't just see you. So much has gone down in the last 2 weeks. But welcome back to Caffeine Chat number 5. I can't believe that we're here already. We do 6 throughout the summer. And we are really coming down the wire here to the start of the semester. So welcome. And I think a couple of you said hello, so I think you can see me, but give me a quick shout in the chat so that I know that you can hear me and all is good. But welcome again. So again, Lindsay Barnett, Director of Student Transitions, and you're hanging in for our caffeine chat here. I actually do have caffeine tonight. So Shannon and Avani, I have been teasing that last, summer I had, a real decaf, like full coffee, right? Not even decaf, like full coffee or full tea. For these sessions because there was just so much going on and I was exhausted. So still tired, but I was finding this summer that if I had a little bit, I would be up for like hours. But as we were just talking about before we went live, we have a lot to do in a very short period of time here. So I actually do have a cup of decaf tea with me tonight, everyone. And my mug tonight is from the coordinates for Ocean City, New Jersey. My family was just there this past week on vacation. And now we're back and I have the Sunday scaries because I've been off for a week and now I have to my email's a mess and I have to get back into the swing of things. So hopefully this will be a nice transition into what my Monday tomorrow will look like. But okay, Steve, thanks so much for letting me know. Good evening, everyone. So Shannon, you mentioned before we hopped on, you have an iced coffee situation that's happening for you right now.
Yes, I do. Get the energy up for Sunday evening. Oh, yeah.
Full-fledged. And Avani, I didn't ask you, but do you have any, are you watering or?
I am watering today. I just quickly ate dinner with my family. It's the time of the year where we celebrate some traditional Indian holidays. So I was like, okay, I need water.
Oh, I love that. I love that. A true story. Actually, I have a little bit of water here too. All right. Well, good evening. So this is one of my favorites for our caffeine chats because Shannon and Avani are two of my absolute favorite people on campus, and together they run the Office of Career and Leadership Development. So I was talking to families a couple weeks ago, those who came to my session for the in-person orientation component, about how we have all this data, right? That families, students, parents, you choose a college and a higher ed institution for a lot of different reasons. But one of them, at least that we know was why we're in contention and why so many choose us, is our outcomes, right? We have students who are capitalizing on unbelievable experiences as an undergraduate student, both inside the classroom and outside of the classroom. And then just the added layer, they're graduating, they are getting full-time employment offers and opportunities, usually several. They're getting into medical schools, graduate school placements. They're able to kind of walk away with the type of resume in the next, 2, 3, 4 years. And again, Shannon and Avani, this is, mostly first-year families and students, but could also be transfer students as well. So some of them might be only here for 2 to 3 years versus the traditional 4. But, they're having the types of experiences at TCNJ that builds a resume that makes them marketable and hard to turn down, if impossible to turn down, for these employers and these grad school programs. And we know that that's a huge piece. And so having you on here is so important because I think that for the families and the students that chose us because of that, now we're kind of walking the walk. When we talked the talk a couple months ago, this is the type of office where, and I've said this, many times, you don't want to have your first interaction with either one of these offices coming junior year in your fall semester, because all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, oh, well, maybe I should do something instead of just go to class, right? Although that's important too, obviously. Or, maybe I should think about putting a resume together, and I probably need to have an opportunity to do an internship or something. These conversations will start now. They're going to start in the very first semester for your student. Your student's going to get hit in a couple different ways with their areas and opportunities. But I thought it was super important to bring them on now, just so that you get familiarized with them. That way you can kind of partner up with your student, touch base with them in the fall and the spring and say, hey, remember that caffeine chat? Have you had an opportunity to connect with either team and, think about your opportunities and things of that nature. So I've rambled on long enough. I am going to turn it over. So Shannon and Avani have a presentation, as every other, caffeine chat has gone previously. I will be monitoring the chat. So if you have questions for them, feel free to throw them in there. I am saving all non-related questions for career and leadership development to the end. They're going to wrap up, they'll probably be here. I would say, I think we'll end up 45 minutes, and then I'll answer some questions that were submitted ahead of time. I know y'all want to talk about housing. We'll talk about it later. All right. But any of those questions I'm going to save. The other thing I'll just stress before I officially turn it over to them. Sometimes in these sessions, we get a lot of like specifics, like what's the acceptance rate for biology majors that are applying to medical school, or my student is a philosophy major. What's the percentage of those students in particular that get full-time job offers? We're not going into the weeds tonight. This is broader, bigger picture overview of the services offered, the ways they support our students. But if you're looking for the fine-tuned details particular to your student's major or their kind of career track, that's gonna be a separate time, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So without further ado, Shannon, Avani, let me get the screen started, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Great. So, hi everyone. Lindsay, thank you for having us from Career and Leadership Development this evening. We're really excited to have this opportunity to connect with parents, to share more information about our office, our team, and really answer questions. So if you go to the next slide, which has our names up there just like it has on ours. So I'm Shannon Conklin. I'm Director of Career and Leadership Development. So I oversee the career side of the Office of Career and Leadership Development. And then I'll let Avani go next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Avani Rana. I'm the leadership side of the Career and Leadership Development area. So I work with our many leadership programs that we make available for our students. But Shannon and I kind of work as partners in crime in what we'll talk about, which is, the storytelling pieces that we want our students to have as they graduate.
Yeah. So our agenda this evening is very simple. We want you to understand who we are, how we help, so you can let your students know, and then understanding what's next for you as parents and for your students that are joining the TC&J community. So within the Career and Leadership Development Office, we're focused on empowering students to explore their potential and possibilities. We're not focused on there's not just one type of career or professional path for students. So from the career side, and Avani will talk about the leadership, of course, throughout this whole evening, but the career side, we're looking at, for example, how the leadership skills that they're building and they're honing through programs that Avani creates and leads and fosters for our TC&J students. We're helping them, as Avani mentioned, like that storytelling piece. How do you use that? How do you understand how that might match with an employer, an organization, or opportunity as far as a skill set and even a value? So that's just a quick highlight of why we have this specific quote up here. So Avani, I don't know if there's anything you want to add about that, the leader side of it.
Well, I just want to share that we also believe that every student has the capacity to be a change agent and a leader. And there is not just one type of leader. So if your child or doesn't see themselves as a leader because they may be introverted or extroverted or whichever way it is, our office is really focused on developing those leadership skills within those students so that they can find their own leadership identity and can be the best person that they can be in that capacity to lead and share their skills and their strengths and the way that they can do that. As Shannon and I have found with our overlap between career and leadership is that there is not just one type of leader. There's not just one type of career. Each student has their own individual career path and their own strengths as leaders within that career path as well. And so what our focus is within our office is to really explore that potential for the student and to really find what those strengths and those areas look like for them so that they can find the right possibility for them, be it graduate school, different things in the future, and so that they are the best person that they can be and bring out the best qualities of their own abilities to the table as they do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So this overall quote, this comes from a book called Design Your Life, and it's one thing that resonates, especially when we think about giving students the confidence to feel that they can navigate the possibilities and that possibility of surprise that will happen in life. We've obviously learned that over the past year and a half. That was a major surprise with the pandemic and everything that's still unfurling related to it. And the same thing applies with a career, this evolving element, evolving constant leadership piece, right? There's all these evolving elements, and we want them to feel that, have a sense of resiliency and confidence with how to really navigate all of those possibilities. So it's not just thinking of hard and technical skills. It's these, what we call power skills, not soft skills, not transferable skills. That's what you might traditionally hear or think of, but they're really powerful skills. They're power skills that have been shown to be increasingly more important, or as equally as important as some of the harder set qualifications and, you know, elements that come into what kind of career and really lifelong career possibility that you want to create for yourself and for your students. So we're really focused on that overall.
And I think we do that through a number of different services and involvements that students can choose to kind of get involved with. We offer numerous one-time and sequential programs for students to participate in. There's no prior leadership or career experience necessary for these students to participate in programs. And part of that is we want them to understand and get a sense of who they are, and also what sort of areas they want to focus on as they develop their own identity at TCNJ. And through that, some of that is through some of our coaching that we offer, that's both offered in career and leadership. We offer different things like a TEDx conference for students to participate, or a fall leadership conference, which is more of a one-off program, or our emerging leaders program, which is more of a sequential program for students. And, you know, part of that is we want them to understand the connections that they can make with employers, maybe through fairs or alumni panels, or to explore career options for themselves that they may not have necessarily thought about, but in intending to kind of think about different opportunities that might be available to them once they come to TCNJ.
Yeah. I mean, so really the career side is really complementing that leadership development and those skills and the competencies that they're developing during all these different experiences that they'll have at TCNJ. And that the practical application of that. How do I reflect this in my resume? How do I reflect this in a cover letter? How do I reflect this and talk about this in a personal statement, in an interview for an internship, in an interview for a full-time job, in an interview for a graduate program? We recognize and appreciate and focus on the fact that there's a wide range of possibilities and opportunities for students coming to TCNJ. And we're really here to make sure students understand how to bring that all together and really advise them on that too, right? We're, you know, advising is a big part of who we are, and bringing in also expert advice, guest speakers, employers in the classroom, collaborating on panels. All of those pieces are just all weaved together between the career and the leadership side of the house.
So I'm actually going to jump in because we had one or two questions. If that's okay with y'all, I'll just feed them in real time. So the first one, Avani, was for you. We had a parent who asked, at what point can students start engaging with your office? And if you want to punt this because you're going to talk about it later, that's fine. But they basically wanted to know, you know, can first year students contact your office directly in the first year?
Yes, I mean, we already have programs available for students as they welcome themselves to TCNJ. We had our Operation Lead program, which is now closed. We had a great interest from our first year students to participate in that, but we will also have opportunities in the fall for students to participate with our fall leadership conference, as well as an emerging leaders program that we'll be recruiting students for, as well as we have Instagram videos that we do that are a collaboration between Shannon and my office that are called Leadership Live. So we're doing like little snippets of leadership lessons for students. So there's definitely different ways that students can interact with some of our content and be able to be part of our office.
Yeah, and I think that that's really important too. Like the Fall Leadership Conference is really a great starting point for all of our new students, whether they're incoming first year or transfer students. And I know, you know, my office is one of the largest student employers on campus. I have 70 orientation leaders that help run my events and work with new students every year. And for a lot of our new students coming in, they may not feel like they can apply for jobs on campus or kind of get involved because they don't have any experience yet, right? So how do I apply for something that needs experience? experience if I don't have any. I look, right? Avani, you know that I ask you every year, okay, send me the list of the people who participated in the fall leadership conference, because to me, that's a really great indication of, okay, this is somebody who wants to improve on their leadership skills or find their leadership skills, or, who wants to get involved on campus and to leave an impact. And that's a really good marker for me for some of our new students that maybe don't have the resume that I would have if a sophomore or a junior were applying for one of my positions. So I really can't stress enough that that's a really great opportunity, and it happens fast. It's in October. So just doing an extra plug for you there. Okay, other question, and both of you can apply. Both of you can answer this. So Steve asked, does your office work in concert or peripherally with such other organizations on campus? And the one he specifically called out was Pride Mentoring Program, PMP, but other organizations. And if they don't, how would you be different or complementary to those types of opportunities? And I know you both can kind of handle that separately based on your different areas of the house.
Well, actually, we work really closely, specifically with PMP. We work really closely with Mr. Johnson and his staff, because part of what we would like to do is not have everyone duplicate efforts for different things that might be happening, but we work closely with Mr. Johnson and his team to develop those leadership skills within the PMP students. So, PMP students might be required to attend certain sessions for the fall leadership conference to open up doors for other opportunities, or they may be attending workshops that we conduct for PMP, so we can be able to kind of work with that to allow them to kind of like foray into that and to get to meet other students who are examining leadership skills in the same way. So we work really closely with a lot of our different offices. Because our TCNJ has experts in certain areas, as we'll talk about with our team, like we rely on those folks to be able to share some of their experiences with specific populations of students, to be experts in that content and to be able to share those kinds of things. So yes, we work really close. Both of our offices work really closely with our different areas around campus.
Yeah, TCNJ is defined by its collaborative nature. So I've been with TCNJ for less than 2 years, and that's something that has really struck me and something I value so much about the TCNJ community overall, with other offices on campus, with alumni, with employers who are usually alumni coming back. It's this constant level of connection and partnership and collaboration. So for example, Mr. Johnson overseeing PMP, he helped introduce us to an alum who now works as a recruiter at Estee Lauder, and now we're building up a partnership with them, as just a prime example of how when there is this collaboration point and we are all driven to see our students develop into their full selves with career leadership development, all the other aspects of what's happening coming to TCNJ specifically. So whenever an opportunity like that comes up, that's a prime example of how we'll collaborate. But another thing I can think of specifically with PMP, but something else that we've worked on with others is looking at what a development plan is. Like what do we want students to know, to think about, to hit on with their career and leadership development, over the 4 years that they're at TCNJ, and recognizing the experiences and skills they bring to the table. For example, transfer students, right? You might have more experience. And then, okay, well, what do I want to make sure that I hit, before I graduate? So that's another kind of example of how we collaborate, and then how we're always have this ongoing, feedback and making sure that we're, delivering on best practices too.
I will also comment that we use a lot of acronyms at TCNJ, so if we do use them, please let us know. PMP is actually our acronym for the Pride Mentoring Program, which is our mentoring and retention program for students of color that we work really closely with. And they're actually our neighbors. They live there around the corner from us in Roscoe West. So we work really closely with them. Yeah. All right. Any other questions, Lindsay, before
No, you're good. Did I need to advance the slide?
Yeah, you're ready to advance.
No worries.
Y'all are good.
So as we shared, our team it's not just the two of us. We have a great team of professionals that work with us. As you can see, our different folks work in different roles throughout the campus community, but you could see any of them for some of these conversations. They are liaisons to different schools in different content areas, and that allows us to being able to be experts or to serve as conversationalists in those areas. But any of us are able to kind of have those conversations. I'm specifically more on the leadership end, but the rest of our team is more focused on career. And as a team, our lives and our own careers are dedicated to helping TCNJ students and alums. And our team is really dedicated to trying to make a really great overall experience for our students. Shannon, you want to add anything else?
No, I think just take a note, and it's probably a little hard to see this, but take a note and recognize that. So for example, Deborah Klokas, she's liaison to School of Business. So if your student's going to School of Business, Deborah will be would be their main person to try and meet with. Although, as Avani was saying, we're all generalists. So Jennifer Broyle, she's liaison to School of Engineering and School of Science. Audrey Cooper is liaison to School of Education, School of Nursing, Health, and Exercise Science. And then Lynette Harris is liaison to School of Arts and School of the Arts and Communication, and Humanities and Social Sciences. So those are the main points of contact. And usually that's who workshops, or say for 099, like the seminars, usually our team makes an appearance in all of those sessions as like a prime example of where your student would first get, introduced to the team specifically.
Yeah, I'll touch on that. Do you have another slide there, or can I talk on that for a second?
We have another slide about just what our area does.
But not the 099s in particular.
No.
Okay.
No.
So I'll just kind of backtrack for a second for a broader picture, because I did mention this for those that came to my sessions in July, and I've been talking about this with families in other caffeine chats and in other emails and things like that over the summer. So your incoming new student, whether you're transfer or first year, is going to have the equivalent of a seminar course, right? So for most majors, it's an 099. Sometimes they get cute. So like the School of Engineering, if you're happen to be an engineering family that's coming in, your student schedule will say ENG 095. They call it an 095. I think psychology is similar. So there's a couple of one-offs, but some type of 09 blank, and the title is going to reference something about a seminar course, right? And what I was telling families a couple weeks ago at orientation was that these are all of, there's not a standardization. So each school and each department does the 099 a bit differently. But the general concept is, hey, we have a lot of information academically to share with you about how our department or our school is structured, where you go to whom for specific questions. So many of our students have, already know they want a double major. They want to pick up a minor. What's the process of doing that? I want to study abroad. What's the best semester to do that? Some of these bigger picture academic related topics, right? Even some basic stuff like lab safety, right? Like the people in the labs in STEM, I'm sure there's all sorts of rules and equipment and things they need to know about. So that's too much to talk about in July, right? Like we're just trying to get your schedules done. We got to get you here. We got to get you up and running. But the 099 equivalents, right? These seminars, they're typically not for credit, and they're usually not the entire semester. It's not going to be exams. You're not going to have homework. It's not going to be like a real kind of meaty class, but it is to complement so that your student is starting to get information about what this 2, 3, 4 year journey for them is going to look like at TCNJ. So part of that, right, and because the schools and the departments can kind of craft it to what their needs are, the career center liaisons are very often asked to come in to say, hi, I'm Lynette Harris, and for the School of Arts and Communication, I'm going to be your liaison for the next few years, and this is how, I work with, these are kind of my resources and how I can support you as a student, right? There's a lot of that goes on. There's, and again, depending on the department or the school, to the extent that they bring career in and do things is a bit different. Sometimes it's at a school level, sometimes it's at a specific department level. Sometimes they might have only certain content in year one, but then other previous, consecutive semesters or years, there might be other classes or opportunities to get more. So I just want to throw that out there as an example of how this office in particular integrates itself kind of, in different ways, right? In addition to that, and we're going to talk a lot more about Welcome Week a little bit later tonight, tonight and more so in 2 weeks for our last caffeine chat, but both of these offices will have sessions during Welcome Week. They will be hosting events and different opportunities, as Avani was mentioning a little bit before, throughout the first 60 weeks of the semester. So I think the big takeaway here is that inside the classroom and outside, there's going to be these opportunities to connect with them. But I really like to stress the piece about the 099s, just as helpful information for all of you to have. So sorry, I went off the little piece there for that. All right, you're back on.
Great. So we are focused on the following areas. As you can see, we want our students to be able to tell their stories to employers, grad schools, and also their fellow students. We pride ourselves on being experts in these areas and hope that we can share these ideas with our students. So, it's not just about career development, it's about leadership, it's about major exploration, it's about creating professional materials, about being a self-advocate for themselves, to be able to tell their stories about who they are, and then about experiential learning and making decisions. And I will also share that, Shannon mentioned resiliency, and I think that's such a key piece with our students right now as they adapt and grow and adapt to an ever-changing environment, especially with students maybe shifting or changing ideas or feeling, disappointed if they don't necessarily get a position or an opportunity that they expected that might lead them on one path that they, had in their head. That's what they were going to do. But really being able to kind of understand what those different career paths might look like or different opportunity paths might look like, and being able to share that those resources are available for them to shift and pivot if needed.
Yeah.
And then our goal is to help. Whatever level we can, whatever ways we can develop our students to be the strongest candidate for their future. And that includes being change agents for a broader society. Our mission at TCNJ includes this idea of being global citizens and being able to develop and increase leadership potential in students and be global citizens. And so these are some of the ways that we hope that we can do that with them.
So that's who we are. So who are your students? When it comes to working with our office, your student might be decided or undecided, or they might be figuring out where they want to begin. Say a transfer student. Okay, I had an internship already. I don't know if I really liked it. And that's making me think about what are my options or what kind of path should I go down, right? I want to be someone who creates change. So that's an example of where we'd have a conversation about how to get involved with different student organizations on campus. What are my options for my major? How can I apply my leadership skills? What if I want to pivot my path? How do I get experience? Or I'm feeling like I am ready to focus. I know where I want to go, but I'm not sure where to start specifically. Or maybe it's the other piece, which is there's a lot of information coming at me. I've started at college and now suddenly I'm feeling a little overwhelmed and I need some help shifting and sifting through all the information that I have to help me get a little bit clarity of what my options are. Or fundamentally thinking, is career leadership for me, right? Like what kind of path do I want to create for myself? So we just want students to understand fundamentally our office is meant to help them in any of these scenarios or any of the scenarios that aren't even on this screen. One of the biggest things that we've seen in our careers working within higher education is sometimes students will wait until, as Lindsay was mentioning, even when we started, junior year to come get in touch with us, or a senior year and saying, they're looking for leadership experience in this job description, for example, or I realize I haven't even started my resume. We want the main message, or one of the main messages from this is to understand is to not wait. Don't wait until senior year to get connected with us. We're here to help. That's why that was that previous screen, because that's one of the messages we want to be clear. We're here to help. And of every background, every major, every level of experience, path, goal, or interest, we're here to help all of the above. And that's something important. Avani, I don't know if you want to add anything else to this.
No, I think you covered most of it.
So how do we specifically help? So Avani and I are going to share a few specific examples in the next couple of slides. And again, Lindsay, let us know if there's any kind of timely questions that specifically come up.
So part of what our role is to help curate your experiences, opportunities, connections, resources. And that's done through a number of different ways, right? So experiences could be part of our emerging leaders program where you're exploring who you are as a leader, or opportunities that might be leadership opportunities that you participate in different organizations. But part of what we want to do is build connections as well with alumni or current students, and being able to kind of be resources to really being able to curate different opportunities for students to bring information together. And part of that is also we do that through a variety of different programs. And so this little sheet kind of has some information about some of the next programs. So Lindsay, the next page. Yep. We offer, if you've heard of TED Talks, we host our own TED conference called TEDx TCNJ, and we'll do that in the spring. We offer leadership coaching for students. Lindsay mentioned the Fall Leadership Conference, but we also offer different opportunities for students to connect through DC Day. And then I'll let Shannon kind of talk about our Handshake, which is our portfolio that we use to connect some of our employers, alumni, and students.
So we have a platform called Handshake, and here's another takeaway that we want students to know, which is sign up for a Handshake account. But it's really actually activating your Handshake account. So every TCNJ student has it, and it will stay with you even after you graduate as an alum. So this is a dashboard for students to engage with our office. This is where events we host are coordinated. We have fairs, so when we have them in person, or what we're having this fall, for example, we're having 4 online career and internship fairs. So Handshake is where students would actually go, log in, and then they would participate in the fairs and then have video chats with employers one-to-one or in an information session. It's also where if we have employers that come to campus or they're coordinating interviews through our office, they would do that through Handshake. Scheduling appointments for career or leadership coaching, all through Handshake as well, applying to jobs and internships, and networking with peers, and then signing up for programs and events like DC Day. So this is an annual event when we're able to travel again, and we're rethinking again, like how we can blend back the lessons that we learned from being remote, and then also with this on-campus experience. So we're very much approaching things with a hybrid mindset. So one example that we've had when it comes to connections that we've been able to foster is a lot of alumni now, because they can just hop on to Zoom very easily from anywhere around the country or globe for that matter. We are having so many more alum who want to connect with students, be a guest speaker on a panel, have one-on-one conversations with students as a mentor or for career conversations or delivering webinars. So that's really, that maps into those experiences that we're curating, and we're having so much success with alumni who want to get involved, and even employers who previously didn't recruit at TCNJ are now recruiting at TCNJ because they can join our online career and internship fair from the comfort of their home office or wherever they're located, which they might not have been able to before because they had a conflict or weren't able to travel to Ewing before. So there's some silver lining with what we're seeing with how recruiting specifically has changed, and that's all rooted through our Handshake platform specifically. So to give you another perspective of the programs and experience, here's some numbers from the last 2 years specifically. So over 4,300 employers posted over 29,000 job and internships postings. That's correct. Over almost 30,000 job and internship postings. Those are jobs and internships available to students at TCNJ. There are a lot. They're in person or they might be remote. There's lots of information. So that's something just shows when you log into Handshake, students have this option to explore such a wide range of opportunities. Our fairs have brought over 150 employers. So that's for, one specific event as an example. Our career and internship fairs usually over this past year specifically have averaged about 80 or to 100, depending on the event. And we're actually, as I had mentioned, now we're pivoting towards smaller, more industry-focused recruitment efforts and events. So our fairs in the fall, we're having 4 because we've broken them down by different career communities and industry groupings based on feedback from employers who are looking to build more meaningful connections with students. So that's something that we're excited to explore. And again, having a broader range of and newer employers that are connecting with us through these types of events. And then another data point here is, because of Handshake, over 350 professional development events in a year. So an example is, for example, employers, YouTube hosted YouTube Live's Women at Google Tech panel, right? So what's it like to be a woman in technology working for Google? That's an example of an event that your student, if they're interested in that type of path, they could go into Handshake, join this event, and understand and get that perspective. So it's something that's really powerful. Or a day in the life with Habitat for Humanity International. So it's a wide range of industries, a wide range of career paths, and a wide range to get a sense of how skills that we're helping them build on campus with leadership programs and events, or working on campus through student employment, for example, that they can then see how do they translate, how do they tell that story, and what are employers specifically looking for. So for, we're recognizing a lot of things keep changing, but we're excited about the activity that we've seen, and we're excited about, again, how we're looking at harnessing some of the momentum that we've had with like virtual recruiting as an example, and building really strong, meaningful connections between alums and employers. It's one of the biggest pieces about TC&J is this community that students are joining specifically, and the value that alums have for recruiting TC&J students. TC&J alums are everywhere, and they are eager to get involved and get connected. So we love that.
So part of what we also do is bring collaborations together. So, we mentioned some of the collaborations we have with our different offices. We collaborate with faculty, alumni, staff, current students, employers, and our community. And we do that through a number of different ways. And then if you want to switch to the next slide, Lindsay. We do that through a number of different programs. So like our Fall Leadership Conference is a collaboration. We have some alumni, we have some employers, and some faculty present during our conference as well. So we're working constantly with different areas within the campus community, as well as our active alums and employers and community members who are we work closely with our community engaged learning portfolio as well, to develop different programs and Shannon will talk about our Summer Community Leaders, which is one of our great collaborations that we have with our Center for Community Engagement. So there's a lot of different ways that we can collaborate with different areas across the campus community, and as well as working with our different alums and different employers, as well as it's stated with Senlar and Donuts with Deloitte, one of the easy, cool ways that students can connect with different employers across campus. So Shannon, if you want to elaborate any more on that.
Yeah, so Summer Community Leaders, like prime example, right? So the leadership skills that students build, it's this foundation, right? And employers love this about TC&J students. When I started specifically 2 years ago, I had a listening tour. I was having conversations with employers, and they highlighted leadership skills, right? And this comes in different ways. So it's not just that positional leadership. That's one thing I've learned so much from collaborating with Avani. And that's such an important piece to recognize, that it's not just about being the leader of an organization. It's how you might lead within a group, take ownership of a group project, for example, like that, or delivering on your end. So there's a lot of different aspects about that, but it's such an important skill. So Summer Community Leaders specifically is a program. It's in partnership with the Bonner Foundation and Community Engaged Learning. And essentially, students are matched with up to 19 organizations in the Trenton, Mercer, Ewing area over the summer. They're AmeriCorps members, so they actually get AmeriCorps tuition reward, education award at the end of the summer. 300 hours of service. And then every week for about 4 hours, they have this mentored component around professional development. This past week, for example, we had a networking event where they got to connect with previous summer community leaders and different organizations for students. And they're all, interested in social impact, for example, as a path. So it was this building their experience, then connecting with alums that went through it essentially in other organizations, and then getting advice for those actually working in the field to help them understand how they're going to connect the experience that they're having with where they want to go in the future. So that's one example of like a really powerful experience that we, again, how we collaborate. C3 series, Candid Career Conversations with Alumni. This is something that we've done in partnership with the Office of Alumni Engagement, where alum come back and they'll talk about a specific topic. And we're also building a mentoring and an ambassador program where alums are available to meet one-on-one with students to give them advice on how to write their resume or how to apply for a job within their field, and open the door to some connections to some actual decision makers within these organizations that happen to be TCNJ alums. So there's just a lot of powerful collaborations that always happen, always happen here at TCNJ. So the experiences, the opportunities, the advice we curate, the partnerships and collaborations we have all lead to students connecting these pieces, to tell their story, to articulate their skills, to know who to connect with, to understand the places they can go and the community they have with TCNJ, and just generally being a part of this powerful connection that they have. So if you go to the next slide, this is just a couple of some alums connecting these people, these pieces, and the successful outcomes for our TCNJ Lions. So you can't see, but a student going on to work at National Geographic or Deloitte or Lockheed Martin. So this is specifically from the class of 2019. And we have more and you'll see our social media accounts at the end of the slides. But if you go and you follow any of our accounts, and we want your students and even you as parents to see that, where we're constantly sharing these types of stories so students can see where could I go? Or where do I have a network that I could leverage? Where can I get advice? And that's what we want. And that's the most important thing for students to see themselves and recognize everything that they can go on to do. So this is where I'll get into some Avani are going to talk a bit about outcomes on both sides of our house, essentially. So from the career side, each year we collect outcome information to understand where students are going within basically the first year of graduating. We're starting to shift this to actually look at where they're going from the time of graduation up to 6 months after they graduate, called the First Destination Survey. But in the past, we were looking at this within the first year. So based on our class of 2019 1-year out survey, and we're focusing on 2019 because we're finishing up the class of 2020 right now. So that information will be available on our website probably by the mid-September point. So class of 2019 is the latest information that we have. Essentially, 93% of students who responded reported that they were working full-time or going on to graduate or professional school. Where are they going? So Johnson & Johnson we have a incredibly strong alumni network, actually. So many students go to work for J&J, go on to study at Rutgers University of Pennsylvania, go on to teach at West Windsor Plainsboro School District, go on to work at CHOP, work at AMC Networks, work at Digitas Health, Bloomberg, PwC, or EY, study at Columbia University. So you see, go on to Peace Corps, Teach for America. The list goes on, and the list is available on our website if you want to really dig in. And so this is if you have those specific questions, okay, what are the outcomes for School of Engineering and this specific major? You can find that on our website, career.tcnj.edu, and we have that all information at the end of the deck. But you'll see, you can drill down to understand where students go on by their major. And this is something that's really important for students and you as parents to also look at, to get a sense of where they go on. And then as a reminder of where there's a connection, right? So it's like, oh, I've always wanted to work there. There's an alum connection there. That's why having that information is so important for us to put out there and for students when they do go on to graduate, for them to answer the survey specifically themselves. So plug that into your student's mind that in 4 years when you graduate, you're going to be asked to respond to a survey, because this information helps current and prospective students understand. So the final pieces here are just looking at the skills, right? So how are students feeling when they graduate? So 93% felt they had the ability to communicate with others, having that confidence in their communication skills. 94% felt they had the ability to present information to others. So confidence in that storytelling. 90% felt they had the ability to execute plans. So having that confidence on where do I go from here? What steps do I need to follow? These are those power skills that they're gaining and they're building, and that we're constantly using this type of information to help inform what do we need to do? Who should we bring in to speak? How do we need to look at this from a competency standpoint? All this information is just part of an ongoing feedback piece that all of us then use with our programs and everything that we, do and why we do it for our students.
And then just to give you a little bit of a sense of on the leadership end of things, connecting, and we just recently got our information post-COVID just recently, that engaging in even one leadership workshop or one program shows such a high level of, shows higher consciousness of self, so knowledge of who they are, citizenship, and being able to have an overall capacity to be a good citizen. And then also thinking about social generativity, which is a concern for future generations and different ideas. And then hope, agency, belief in one's ability to initiate and sustain goal-directed efforts, but also resiliency, as we mentioned before, which is such a key piece in this ever-changing environment. So having your students participate in these particular programs can really help them grow as a person, as well as a leader within our community. And so we want them to walk out of TCNJ with those skills so they can have a consciousness of who they are, have a better idea of who they are going to be, and then also show them how they can be real change agents for the community, but also how they can be resilient and be able to adapt when we are dealing with the uncertainties of life. To be frank, right? We want them to be able to be good citizens and be able to engage in that constant changing environment as well. So I want to share what's next with our students. I mean, there's lots of different opportunities. We will have both virtual and hybrid events for students and in-person events. So, we're trying to extend our engagement with employers, alumni, with our current students in doing that. So, our social media, and Lindsay mentioned in the chat today at TCNJ, we'll be advertising a lot of these programs for students to participate. We'll also be advertising on the Roar app, all these different things. So we will be bombarding them with opportunities that hopefully they will take advantage of, and being able to engage in some of these conversations that we have. The Fall Leadership Conference is also linked to some of the 099 courses. Will require students to attend a workshop, which is a great way for them to kind of get their feet wet within leadership development a little bit. And they can choose a number of different events throughout that week that they can participate in. So, part of what TCNJ does really well is to try to share a variety of different opportunities for students to be able to engage in this work. And so Shannon and I try really hard to do both, programming that's more for our introverted students or extroverted students and different types of learners, so that they feel comfortable with the levels of engagement within our office.
Yeah. And so yeah, here are events that are coming up, but I just want to chime in about the hybrid piece. A hybrid example might be, we have an alum who is going to be on a screen, for example, and taking questions live with students on campus. So that's some of the things that we're evolving, having our on-campus in-person events, having virtual events, having hybrid events. So it's really exciting right now to see and think about all the possibilities now that we have as far as bringing these meaningful events and experiences to our students. So the first few events that are listed on there, those are the career and internship fairs by different career communities. So, an example for the Creative Communication and Business Career and Internship Fair, say that the city of Trenton is trying to recruit accountants. They would attend that fair because the function, since these are around career communities, is more business. So we're trying to help students recognize the broad range of possibilities that are available to them around these career communities. And there's going to be lots of information. So this is going to come back to, sometimes I'm bombarded with a lot of information, how to sift through. So we're going to have career fair prep sessions. And again, like this is where our staff speaking at the O99s help clear up and help students understand. And then we have like a graduate and professional school fair. So that's right at the beginning, right in September, to make sure that when there's especially employers that might be recruiting for internships or experiences early on, or they just want to have information sessions so students can start understanding. This is what's really important for freshmen. Say you're not thinking about an internship, but you just want to get a sense of what's it like to participate in an online career and internship fair. We want you to log on and meet with at least one employer just to get a sense of it. And then to also get a sense of who recruits at TCNJ. That's the main piece. It's all part of that exploration that's really important. Being new at TCNJ, or if you're a transfer student, to jump right in, right? And to make the most of your time with us. So there's a couple more that are listed, but I'll let Avani talk about all the leadership ones as well.
Yeah, so our fall leadership conference, which is the week of October 4th through the 8th, we'll be doing that virtually. We'll be doing a hybrid piece for that. Our Emerging Leaders Institute, which is it actually takes place in the spring semester. We'll be recruiting for students in the fall semester. It's a cohort-based 8-week program that we'll be offering for students. And Leadership, which is our 6-day leadership program that we offer during winter break. And then so those are opportunities for students that we'll be making available in the fall, but will be further into the semester for them. And so there's lots of opportunities. And then we encourage you to follow us on social media or check out our websites for the different opportunities available for students.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, and you can feel free to email us directly if you have questions as well.
Okay. So, I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Hold on. All right. I think most of the questions were answered. We did. So I had one parent who asked if they want their business, right, their company or their employer to be on Handshake. So the other side of the coin, who should they reach out to in Shannon in your office?
If you go to our website, career.tcnj.edu, and there's a tab that says employers. So if you go there, or if you just email career@tcnj.edu, we'll route you to Handshake and how to get signed up, and then that we approve you. So yes. Perfect. Wonderful.
Perfect. And then another question, and then I have one more kind of thought. Then it was one or two questions that were asked, but I'm just gonna speak to that. But so our undecided majors, like our actual undecided majors, Center for Student Success, they're obviously getting advised a bit differently. Who should they connect with in the Career Center if they have questions? Because there's not like a liaison technically for that area.
They can meet with anybody. So awesome. This is where, if they're leaning towards potentially one school, then maybe they want to have that conversation. But we work with Center for Student Success very closely with undeclared majors. So, for example, they'll take the strong interest inventory, for example, which is like a career assessment test. And then Avani will work with them on other tests, like assessments, to help them start thinking about their skills and their strengths and their areas of interest. So that when it comes to declaring a major, that they feel confident in that. We also have a resource called What Can I Do With My Major? That's literally what it's called. What can I do with my major? And you search by different majors, and it can really give you a sense of what are some of my options, just get those pieces. So it's a personalized approach. And then there's lots of resources that we want undeclared students to recognize. And again, they can request an appointment with anybody through Handshake, based on their availability to just start that conversation.
Perfect. And then I think the final thing that I just wanted to stress with the group, and there was a question about, are there's kind of I think there's a, what's the word I'm looking for here? I don't have it, but anyway, some type of notion that like the opportunities for the internships and internships and interviewing and all that kind of stuff doesn't happen for the underclassmen, right? Like it's something that's only really, you have to be a junior to be able to take advantage of those opportunities. And the gentleman later, Rebecca, said, nope, I think my answer's there, but I really want to stress that, right? I know, for example, and it varies a lot by school, like the accounting majors, like anybody listening to who's an accounting major, like I think they have internships right after the first year, right? Like they are a machine with some of that stuff. Other ones that you may not need it, right? So, but the answer to that question is just no, right? Your student, that might be true at a larger school, right? I went to Penn State, totally humongous state school. That was a totally different ball game, right? Hopefully that's also why you pick TCNJ, is because your student's not going to get lost and they are not going to have to wait to having these types of opportunities. The same thing is true for research. And I know we don't talk about research in this session, right, but this is not the type of school, a lot. And I talk about that when I used to work in admissions all the time, you go to these large state schools and they show you the fancy labs, but then they're like, oh no, those are for our grad students. You don't get to go in there, right? The opportunities to do research start very early too, but this is going to need to be on your student to make and take ownership of that journey and to write that story. So that they're not going to come to the door. Your student's going to have to go out there. They are going to have to make connections. They should get to know staff like us, right? We are not scary. I think that, part of college is realizing that you can have a relationship with your, obviously professional relationship with your staff and your faculty members. They're people, right? And generally speaking, and I think, Shannon spoke to this a bit about community, we want to help. So, but it is going to be on your student to kind of create those opportunities for themselves and to put themselves out there. That's going to be a really important piece and a really great thing that you can do to support them. You know what I mean? Is just kind of being that piece. And I wanted to end with one more kind of thought. And that is that it's okay for your student to settle in. So we want to really stress, hey, like connect with us early, connect with us often. But a lot of times I get students who are like, you know what, I just got to keep my head down and I got to get the classroom done. Your student is going to have a lot of change coming up here. And a huge piece to it, whether they're first year or transfer, is the rigor of college, the difference in time management skills and how they're balancing all those activities. And for a lot of times, they don't really come up for air right away, right? Like they are head down. I am going to get off on a good foot academically. That is okay. But what I hate hearing is the student who's like, you know what, they're going to have other friends who got involved really, really quickly and who took advantage of these opportunities really quickly. And they may feel behind because they didn't do that. Don't. I didn't hit my stride till I was a sophomore. In many ways, okay, and I think I've shared that on this piece, on this chat a bit. But don't, if your student's the type that they just need to hunker down and focus on that academic piece first, that is okay. But don't let that be a deterrent. Spring semester of the first year, fall semester. I mean, Avani, I'm sure you can speak to this from the leadership perspective. I mean, there are students who come out of the woodwork who end up being amazing leaders on this campus who didn't get that start till sophomore year.
And I think part of it is also like exploring their first year. So it doesn't mean that you have to I'm going to go, I use this example, Dave Connor, who's our director of student involvement, always says, join an organization that you want to do for fun. Join 3 organizations your first year if you can, right? Is one that you want to really enjoy, that you really want to have fun with, one that's related to your academic background, and then one that you never thought you would join, but you're interested in. And I think that's such an important piece for students to kind of do. We're not telling you need to be in a leadership role or join all the committees or do all of that, but being able to connect with other students and joining an organization on that low level of joining and going to meetings or going to certain events so that they can socialize with other students who may have interests that are similar to theirs is an important piece for their transition, right? And if they don't like it, they can change. They can drop that organization, and that there's no shame in that game either, right?
No shame.
So it's about exploring and finding that sense of community for students, and that might be within the Student Nurses Association or the Future Teachers, but it could also be with the Nose Biting Teacups, which is our Harry Potter organization, right? Or the Circus Club, which does circus stuff all over campus. So, and there are also opportunities. As the student government advisor, I will make the plug that students can run for election their first, within their first couple of months of coming to TCNJ. and do that. But like, that's not for everyone, and that's okay too, right? Like,
yeah, I think you want to find the balance, right? We have a huge problem at TCNJ with students that are over-involved, right? So the ones that want to be involved and have 18 different leadership positions, and it's like, okay, let's figure out a better balance for you because it's not shifting. But then we have the ones that don't get involved at all and they just go to class and that's it. You want to find the sweet spot in the middle, and you want to find one or two things to get involved with and really get involved with them. And again, you're building a resume of experiences so that when you go to sit down for that interview, whether it be grad school or a job, you can say, yeah, you know what? I was an orientation leader on campus, and it's a lot more than just helping new students move in. And let me tell you a little bit about the things I learned about myself and how I can apply that to my job if I was offered this position. I mean, Avani comes in and does that, and Shannon's team comes in and does that with my staff. Obviously not now. We're really crazy leading up to Welcome Week, but in like usually September, October, in the fall, I like to say, hey, now talk about it, right? And you would be amazed, like 90% of them, their resume when it comes to my office and working for it, because they have to submit it to a reapply, looks like crap. And I'm like, yell at them. And I'm like, y'all have to tell the story better. So again, off of the tangent on that, but I think that that's a really important piece. Okay, Shannon, Avani, thank you so much. I love having you two on. I think what you do on campus is just so important and is such a complementary piece to getting the actual education degree done, right? Like that actual degree. But I appreciate you both and that whole team tremendously. I need to go in and log into Handshake too. I feel like I'm looking around a little bit because I have never been on it. But thank you for sharing. I have a couple of quick questions to wrap up because we're running on time. If you want to stick around, great. If not, no problem. You can sign up and I'll say see you later. But thank you again. Super great. And for spending some time on this Sunday evening with us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. And I know you're
take care, everyone.
You can chime off here. All right. So a couple of final questions for you all. And I'm just going to do a few. I'll check the ones that were answered ahead of time. One question came in about when your students are going to see their courses in Canvas. Not now. So this is typically done right a couple days, if not a day before the first day of class. It just kind of depends on the faculty member. Again, as some of you hopefully know or remember, I just wrapped up my graduate degree at TCNJ. So it's not, now's a little early, but I would say anytime within like the week leading up to the first day of class is when faculty members will publish it. So you might see, your student might see it in Canvas, but if they can't click on it, it means that the course hasn't been published. So it won't show up. So they'll be able to see it, but then it won't go live. And then once it goes live, obviously, they're more than welcome to go in. They'll take a look around, review the syllabus. But a lot of what our faculty do on that first week, we call it, obviously syllabus week, that first class or two, is kind of walking them through and explaining the structure of the course, how they're going to utilize Canvas, because there's a whole, some of them will use it a lot and some of them might not use it as much. I've had faculty members on both ends of that spectrum with regards to it, but that will be coming within the next couple of weeks, but it would be a bit too early now, I think. And maybe there's one or two out there that did and jumped ahead of it, but I imagine they're kind of putting the finishing touches on the semester. So that was a question. I had another question about AP scores. So yes, so fun. So the AP score scheduling adjustments, if the AP score impacts the schedule for the fall semester, you should be getting, your students should be receiving communication from the department on that. And I know that we talked about that a few weeks ago at orientation. In some first semester sequences, it may not matter at all. So the schedule stays the same, but it might give up and allow some opportunity for some changes and for the spring semester and some wiggle room. If there's others that it says, yes, if you got this score, it's a direct change. That's really a conversation your student should be having with the department chair, and they should have gotten some guidance on that prior to this point. It's another really good reminder that they should be checking that TCNJ email. If they haven't done it now regularly, this is something that really they should be doing every day now going forward. There is just tons of information in the next couple of weeks that's going to be coming to them. And if they're not checking it, they're gonna be behind, and we don't want anybody starting off on a bad foot for the semester there. So that's what I would say about the scoring, the scheduling changes with the adjustments. And I actually, because I was on vacation last week, I don't know if the June test date scores came in yet. I think that was a mid-August thing. I'm not sure if we got that or not. But I would just, encourage, there's a on the back end, there's a overnight process that updates a master spreadsheet, and that spreadsheet everybody, all the department chairs, the people who work on schedules have access to. So they would be able to answer questions pretty quickly if the AP scores were loaded and they were able to see that on that student's record. But again, anything related to, and then there was another question about scheduling changes at this point. These are really questions that I would encourage your student to reach out to that department chair specifically with to get those answered before we get to the start of this semester. All right, so those were all the questions I had, I think, in the chat. And let me go back and see what was submitted ahead of time. All right. I can go over some housing info very quickly, but here's two things about that. One, have your student check their email. Housing department's going to be sending them tons of stuff. So have that open conversation with your student. All right. And make sure that they're checking the email, because I don't know everything that's going out, but I know that the housing department has been very much in communication with them throughout the summer with all of these changes and different kind of protocols for getting move-in. But I can answer top level that if your student doesn't have their TCNJ ID, the goal is that they can pick it up at move-in. That's the plan. That's the goal anyway. Haven't heard back yet. Haven't talked to Scott because I've been away. I will get some more details for that for the next caffeine chat in 2 weeks. But I know the goal was, if they don't have their TCNJ ID in hand because they didn't make it to the in-person event a couple of weeks ago, that the goal was to facilitate so that they would be able to pick that up when they check in for their 3-hour move-in time slot. So more to come on that. And your student should have if they didn't select their drop and go location. Again, that was an email that went to their TCNJ email address. They should go back and find that. That was a couple of weeks ago. With regards to move-in, you're allowed to have 2 people separate from the student. So a total of 3 people who are able to help move in. 2 people for that 3-hour window. There will not be people helping out. So wear sneakers and watch the weather. You can bring a fan or bring a lot of water. Sometimes that week it can get very hot. Other years we've been very blessed with low humidity and lower temperatures. But there will not be people around to kind of help. So it will be, bring 2 people with you for the 3-hour move-in slot. If you're moving into a space that has elevators, so like if your student is living in Travers and Wolf or has an elevator, sometimes we have those like blue bins that you can put stuff in to use with the elevators. So there might be that, but I really encourage students and families, if you have a hand truck or if you have something to help with the move, that makes it a little bit easier that day. We're getting into the weeds now with stuff. There is going to be a lot more information about those pieces coming to your student within, I would say probably this week or next week at the latest. So sit tight on that. If there is a question related to housing that absolutely cannot wait, just email housing@tcnj.edu. They have a couple people, just like I do, in the inbox checking and replying to emails, and they'd be more than happy to answer any specific questions that you have about the process. But more to come with those pieces for the housing there. I did have a question submitted about changing majors. Again, that process is closed right now for the first, now through kind of to the start of the semester. And if you went to the Academic Affairs website and you just type in change of major, we have a beautiful PDF that every department has to update every semester, every year with the process for how to either apply or change into that major. Again, sometimes it might not be an application and it's open enrollment. Others say you may have these prerequisite classes you need to take and you need to earn X GPA in order to apply, or whatever the case may be. So each department does it a bit differently based on the number of seats and the competitiveness. But right now at this point, way too late to be doing major changes, but we'll get you in the fall semester and we'll get you some more information about that. Textbooks to be determined. I had a parent who submitted that and asked if that's typical at this point. Yeah, probably. I don't know. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Again, I think this is kind of where the faculty are starting to, August is a busy time for everybody as they're gearing up. So I would just say to check back, every day or two and to see if it got submitted. You could also, if that's the case, just give a quick call to the bookstore and say, hey, do you have any anticipation of when they might be receiving textbook information for a particular class? I don't know if that will help or hurt, but that might be worth a call. I would say that, I feel like it's usually 2 to 3 weeks before before classes start, that I would get information about textbooks, or I'd be ordering them. And I feel like there might have been one semester that I had a faculty member who was a little bit late. But normally, I'd say I'd be shocked if it was the end of this week and you still didn't have that information. So keep in touch on that if there's any other questions I can have. But I would contact the bookstore and just get a heads up there, because sometimes there might be a little delay in getting the information onto the website for that. How long is Welcome Week? And if you have to drop off, thank you for joining, but I'll wrap this up really quickly. So I'm going to talk a lot about Welcome Week in 2 weeks at that last caffeine chat, right? So the next one, I believe it's the 22nd, which is frightening because that's like so close. And that's also day one of training for my staff. So that's going to be a really exciting day. But Welcome Week will go, and your student will get a lot more information from me. I'm very behind on newsletters to them and other information. So they'll be hearing from me this week, but essentially Welcome Week in its entirety is 5 days for the first year and the provisional students and 4 days for our transfer students. It starts on Thursday, August 26th. It'll go through Sunday, August 29th for the transfer students. And then August 30th on that academic welcome day, that's for our first year and our provisional students on that Monday, and then classes start on Tuesday. Welcome Week has over 100 mandatory and optional sessions that our new students can attend. It is a top 3 TCNJ memory. That's what I was telling students and families that came to my sessions during orientation. It is just this penultimate experience. You get to, there's some stuff that we make you do because you are now members of our community, and Shannon and Avani talked a lot about that, but we really take a lot of pride in our community, and we have expectations of everybody who lives in it. So we have a couple of sessions, mandatory sessions, that introduce our students to those expectations that we have of them in terms of behavior and a host of other things. But a lot of it's social. A lot of it's, hey, like walk around and get a feeling for not only where you're living, but where you're kind of going to class, where you're eating on campus, you're making friends, you are learning about resources. I mentioned that earlier, that Avani and Shannon, their offices both have sessions and fun things as a part of Welcome Week. But it's really just a great opportunity to kind of start college and to start TCNJ for my transfer students. Yes, transfer students participate, and yes, commuter students participate. It always breaks my heart when they don't think that we have things for them, but I assign 2 orientation leaders for the entire commuter cohort. And one of the most important things that they do is I have this big kickoff dinner on Thursday night and we give pizza, obviously, because it's college, but they do a big group me for all the commuter students that are starting at TCNJ in the fall. And that's what they will use, right? So they'll sit there and go, okay, if they're coming to campus and they get here at 10 o'clock on Friday for Welcome Week, they just do a quick chat like, hey, I'm here, where's everybody meeting up? And then they can kind of get connected, right? Because we recognize it's a bit different for them because they don't have like a floor. They don't have that residential identity. So we build a really nice community for them as well. So transfer students, commuter students, the provisionals, obviously the first years that are living on campus. So the schedule's coming. I'm putting finishing touches on it. I'm really excited about it. I think that they're going to have a great time, but more to come on that. But it is a full 4 to 5 day program. So once your student comes back, if they do the drop and go move in that Thursday, I think what residential education, I can share this. So I believe residential education and housing said that they can come back anytime after 2 p.m. on Thursday. And this is for everybody who did drop and go in the 4 or 5 days leading up to it. And then went home, right? You came, you dropped off your stuff, you went back. Welcome to Welcome Week kickoff meeting with your orientation leaders for all of my residential students, first years, provisionals, and transfers will be at 2:30 on Thursday. So make sure that you're back right between 2 and 2:30 because you don't want to miss that. My commuter students, whether you're a first year student commuter, provisional student commuter, or a transfer student commuter, say that 5 times fast. Your kickoff is dinner and kickoff will be at 5:30 on I think it's 5:30. Yeah. On Thursday, the 26th. So 2:30 if you're living on campus, 5:30 if you're living off campus. And we'll go from there. So much more to come about the schedule, much more information coming to your students, not just from me, but from housing and from all these other pieces. So just make sure that your students checking that email. And we're going to go into answering a lot of last minute questions and talking about it in a little bit more detail in that caffeine chat in 2 weeks. So I think that covered most. I think the last thing that was submitted, and thank you so much for bearing with me here for a few minutes, was about the health insurance waiver. I believe that you probably submitted waivers. It just hasn't been removed from your bill yet? I don't have an answer for you on that. I'm so sorry. I don't know in terms of paying or not paying. Do you just kind of pay the amount minus the insurance, or should you wait? I don't have an answer for that. So I would say at this point, well, this is so hard too, because this video will live in infamy on the internet. And I don't want to make Scott Safira mad at me. I would say shoot a quick email to student accounts and just ask them, because I don't want to tell you one thing and then have it be, I'm a big trying not to do misinformation person. So email student accounts and ask. I know that we're probably, I think, a couple weeks out from the deadline for that payment, and ask, give a heads up. I'm sure that they are receiving thousands of these insurance waivers right now and just going through the process. But if you, obviously if you want to pay it and it's still on there, I would shoot them an email to get that. So, all right. Wow. Almost 15 minutes over. I'm so sorry, but thank you for joining us. I hope that you found the information really helpful. As always, I'll just throw this really quickly in the chat box. It's my general email, studenttransitions@tcnj.edu. I'm slightly behind because I was out last week. So we're going to try to catch up this week. If you did email me and you have questions, and then let me just scroll back and make sure that I missed any other questions here. Yeah, so AP scores College Board has to send them. We don't get them automatically, so make sure that your student told them to send it to us. I answered the question about the bins. Let's see here. Can more than one show up in the parking lot with only 2 people at a time in the room? Janet, good question. We're really trying to keep numbers down. We were doing this even before the Delta variant started going a little crazy. And now with Delta, really the goal is let's keep it to 2, definitely 2 in the building. If you have one person who just wants to kind of walk around and they're staying outside the entire time, that's fine. It is what it is, but we're really just trying to make sure that the numbers in the building are as minimal as possible so that we can create as safe as an experience. And I will also say, because I think this question come up, there was some changes to the guest policy. This is information that was sent from housing to your student. So have your student read their TCNJ email and read through that policy. But that move-in period, that 3-hour window for your move-in will be the only time that you'll be allowed in the room. When you drop off the student back on Thursday for welcome week, no, parents are allowed in the residence halls at that time. And the guest policy for the upcoming year is that they will not be allowing any students who live off campus, any commuter students. The only students that are going to be allowed into the residence hall are the students that live in that residence hall. And I know that we had a couple of angry emails about that. And I think I mentioned that at the end of the chat, and that might have spurred some of this, but please go through and read that email. The housing department went through a lot of detail to explain why we're choosing to go this route. It is much better than what we were offering for the spring semester, but it really details that. It also goes into a bit of detail about our lounge space. So what a lot of people didn't realize was that we were not allowed to use any of the lounges in the residence halls for any type of programming or activities in the spring semester due to state restrictions with COVID, and that's eased up a bit. So that email has a lot more information about the guest policy, and I would really encourage your student to hear it. But that 3-hour window for move-in is the only time that you will be allowed in the space. And then when you drop them back off on Thursday, you won't be able to be allowed in. Okay, I think we're good. Thank you all so much. Again, I will stick around and try to answer 1 or 2 more questions in the chat, but otherwise have a lovely evening, and we'll be back for our last one in 2 weeks. So take care and enjoy the rest of the time that you have with your student. It's going to go really fast, but they're in good hands, and we are so excited to have them joining us for the fall. So good night, everyone. Take care.